السيدات والسادة، يسرنا ترحيب بكم مجددا في جلسات الملتقى السعودي لصناعة الاجتماعات، واليوم الثالث يوم الجمعيات السعودي الذي يعد أهم لقاء من نوعه للمسؤولين العاملين في الجمعيات العلمية والمهنية والطبية والأهلية المعتمدة في المملكة، حيث أن الهدف من إقامة هذا اللقاء هو تطوير أداء الجمعيات لإيجاد اجتماعات ومؤتمرات ذات العلاقة باختصاصها، وأيضا لتمكينها من بناء الشراكات مع نظرائها في الجمعيات الدولية، وبالتالي النجاح في استقطاب المؤتمرات الدولية إلى المملكة. الجلسة الأولى من يوم الجمعيات السعودي محورها حول تطوير أداء الجمعيات السعودية لاستقطاب فعاليات الأعمال الدولية. هذه الجلسة تهدف إلى تسليط الضوء وطرح التجارب في سبل تطوير أداء الجمعيات السعودية لتمكينها من استقطاب الاجتماعات والمؤتمرات التي تقيمها الجمعيات والمنظمات الدولية إلى المملكة. يدير الجلسة الدكتور خالد بن محمد السرحان، مدير إدارة علاقات الجمعيات والمؤسسات والمراكز بوكالة التنمية الاجتماعية بوزارة العمل والتنمية الاجتماعية بالمملكة العربية السعودية. المتحدثون السيد جون بيكوك، المدير العام لمنتدى الجمعيات الأسترالية، وسوف يتحدث عن استدامة تمويل احتياجات الجمعيات من نظرة دولية. المتحدث الثاني أجاي بوتشواني، العضو المنتدب لMCI الشرق الأوسط، وسوف يتحدث بمشيئة الله عن التنافس في تقديم العطاءات والنجاح في استقطاب فعاليات الأعمال. المتحدث الثالث السيد روبن ميلر، مدير إدارة المبيعات للمؤتمرات والفعاليات بشركة أبو ظبي الوطنية للمعارض، وسوف يتحدث بمشيئة الله عن توجهات الجمعيات الدولية وأثرها في صناعة الاجتماعات. سعادة دكتور خالد، الحديث إليك الآن.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد. بداية يطيب لي أن أشكر القائمين على الملتقى السعودي لصناعة الاجتماعات، كما يسرني أن أرحب بجميع المشاركين معنا في هذه الجلسة من المتحدثين والحضور. جلسة اليوم هي بعنوان يوم الجمعيات السعودي، وهذه الجلسة تهم المسؤولين والعاملين في الجمعيات الأهلية، سواء كانت جمعيات بر أو جمعيات تخصصية. وأقصد بجمعيات البر هي الجمعيات التي تقدم المساعدات سواء كانت مادية أو عينية للمحتاجين أو الفقراء، وأيضا الجمعيات التخصصية أقصد بها الجمعيات العلمية والجمعيات المهنية والجمعيات الطبية وغيرها من الجمعيات المتعددة في المملكة العربية السعودية. ما يميز هذه الجلسة أنها تساعد على تطوير أداء الجمعيات لإيجاد اجتماعات ومؤتمرات ذات علاقة بتخصصها، وأيضا تمكين الجمعيات من بناء شراكات مع نظيراتها في الجمعيات الدولية، وبالتالي النجاح في استقطاب الاجتماعات والمؤتمرات داخل المملكة العربية السعودية، خاصة أن أو علما بأن عدد الجمعيات في المملكة العربية السعودية الآن وصل إلى 943 جمعية، ووزارة العمل والتنمية الاجتماعية تستهدف في رؤية المملكة 2020 الوصول إلى تجاوز 1000 جمعية، وإن شاء الله قريبا راح نتجاوز هذا العدد، مع التركيز على الجمعيات التخصصية. أيضا ما يميز هذه الجلسة وجود نخبة من المتحدثين في هذه الجلسة. راح نبدأ بأول المتحدثين مستر جون بيكوك، وهو حاصل على درجة البكالوريوس في التجارة من جامعة سيدني، بدأ حياته المهنية في إدارة الجمعيات عام 1989 كمدير التطوير المهني المستمر في معهد المحاسبين القانونيين في أستراليا، وأصبح الرئيس التنفيذي للجمعية القانونية متوسطة الحجم في غضون 10 أعوام. أيضاً هو المدير العام لمنتدى الجمعيات الأسترالية، ويعتبر المستشار الأكثر خبرة في أستراليا للجمعيات المهنية والصناعة والأعمال، وزعيم الفكر لقطاع الجمعيات بشكل عام والجمعيات الخيرية بشكل خاص. وسوف يتحدث لنا مستر جون عن استدامة التمويل احتياجات الجمعيات، وهي نظرة دولية. فليتفضل مشكوراً.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very pleased to be with you today. It's a great honour to be presenting at Associations Day at the Saudi Meetings Industry Convention. This is my first trip to your wonderful country, and may I express my thanks to the wonderful welcome that I and the other international visitors have received during our time here. As an Australian, I feel very much at home in Saudi Arabia because you have a lot of desert and it's very dry and hot, so very much like my own country. Associations Forum is an organisation with 500 associations as members, and I will mention that Australia has probably 100,000 active associations. That's 100,000 active associations. We work like an industry association in that we provide advice, research, publications, developments, consulting work, and we also run events. Our magazine is shown there, and I will mention that there are copies of the magazine, which is this magazine, which are on at the end of the aisles, and one lucky person will find a boomerang inside it as well. That's the prize for someone who finds that magazine. My background, I have been in the association sector for 29 years, and I was volunteering even before that. So my time in associations is probably closer to 35 years, because I was an active volunteer at high school and I was an active volunteer at university as well. I was very fortunate, and I think that those people here who get to work in associations are very fortunate, because it has been a very rewarding and a very fruitful career for me. I worked for other associations in my 20s and 30s, and in my 20s into my early 30s, and then for the last 15 years I have been running Associations Forum in Australia. We work primarily in Australia, but we also do outreach programs for a number of other countries in Asia. There are not two types of ownership. People have been talking a little bit at this conference about the public sector and the private sector, but I would like to say there are actually three sectors. Public, which is government, and private, which is business, and I also think there are associations. Associations aren't part of government, they aren't private businesses, and that's why I believe they deserve their own category. And in red here, I would add that associations are crucial infrastructure for the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Just quickly back on those three sectors, for-profit, it's all to do with ownership. For-profit businesses have ownership that can be bought and sold. Government is authority and the law of the nation, and associations give you involvement and control at any time. There are associations, and there are also charities, which are a separate category of particularly good causes. And associations cover industries, professions, community groups, sports groups, art groups, religious organisations, trade unions and NGOs. So what are associations? They have members as their owners and they serve their members. They are large, they are a large industry, they are politically neutral, and they are a service industry. At this conference we heard other speakers talk about the importance and the future of the service industries for Saudi Arabia, and you will find that associations are ideal service industries. They start with passion and when volunteers get together to promote their cause. We've heard from our chair that there are a number of associations in Saudi Arabia, and they hope that there will be 1,000. I believe that in due course there will be many more. And volunteers get together, they do the work, they discover that they have made a little bit of money, and they start to employ staff. And that is the exciting thing when associations really gain momentum, when they employ staff. I will add that associations, point number 4, associations are not NGOs, which have a reputation as being activist. Now, NGOs might be associations, but associations are not necessarily NGOs. So we shouldn't use the term NGO, we should talk about associations. Associations are strong and they are growing overseas. Around the world there are associations for every legal area, and probably there are associations for a few illegal ones as well. They cover professions, they cover industries, and they cover special interests. They prosper because members never get financial dividends. This is crucial to associations. This means that if an association makes a profit on a World Congress or from their involvement or their services to their members, that money stays within the organisation. It does not get distributed to shareholders. That is why every year, logically, if you make a profit one year, the next year you will have more money and more money. Obviously, associations sometimes make losses, but they do not have shareholders, which is why some organisations, I will tell you this, that in Australia, some associations have $2 billion in the bank. So that's the sort of scale, and that's only in Australia. So one of the points, back to the topic for this talk today, associations are very financially sustainable. Associations offer services to members. I have 7 suggestions of the sorts of services. They set professional and industry standards, and they accredit their members. They give general advice, and they have technical hotlines. They have communications, and they have publications such as the magazine that I've shown you this morning. They do advocacy to work in conjunction with the governments of their nations to improve regulations that affect the industry or the profession. They run ongoing training and ongoing education, and most relevant to the people at the conference yesterday and on Sunday is that they have informational conferences and they have expos. I would add and let you know that the reason associations exist is not to run conferences. They are there to service their members and advance the cause that they represent, and luckily for the meetings industry, they run a lot of conferences as well. This slide gives an overview of the connection between associations and business events. On the left, you can see that associations have, for example, standards. They do networking, communications, business growth, and advocacy. On the right, we have business events, and there are corporate events and government events. And at the intersection between these two important sectors are association conferences. And you can imagine that if you did not have the words in red, that business events would be a much lesser sector. So that's what I want to strongly say to you today, that you must have a strong association sector that can run association conferences, and they usually start with national conferences and then they move to international. Not always the case, but they usually start with national conferences. I am a great believer in association development at a national level. Associations are the first or the second biggest event organisers, along with corporations. Associations are more recession-proof than corporates. And if you think about it, if you have an economic downturn, a corporate may cancel their training conference or their meetings of senior managers, but associations who are not driven purely by profit will continue to run events. So they are good, stable customers for the meetings industry. The association sector in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia must be developed, as it's a win-win-win situation. It's a win for the members because they receive wonderful services. It's a win for the meeting sector because they are events that need to be run by the meeting sector in your country, and they are a win for the government because it takes the pressure off the government to provide a lot of services, which leads me to point number 4. I believe it is a problem if there is an expectation that the government should fund the sector. One of the reasons associations are strong in many countries is because they have had to figure out what services do we need to run to make profits to grow our association. They take responsibility for organising their associations, and they do not expect the government to pay for them. So that is a significant issue that I think you should consider, that you should not expect the government to take the lead in the long term on association funding. Because as governments get poorer, they take away your funding, and it really imperils your organisation. I have a couple of comments to make about association venues and destinations. Always remember, most associations make most profit from events. So when an association is considering running an event, they are going to want to make a profit from the event. So the cost of the venues and the likelihood of getting good numbers to the conference is crucial. Associations are not extravagant and they need practical, affordable venues. And may I say that this venue with the Intercontinental next door, this makes sense for an association. You've got great facilities, nice rooms, it's conveniently connected and that sort of thing. Associations also need airports nearby and adjacent hotels, and when they are here, they expect the good food, service and the condition of the venues, which I'm delighted to say we have all seen over the last couple of days. I probably should add the word there, hospitality, because the international visitors have been made feel very welcome in your nation. A personal opinion on the appeal of Saudi Arabia is that it is seen as a fascinating, dynamic and modernising nation. People say wow when someone says they are going to your kingdom. The fact that you have not had a lot of tourism in your history is a great opportunity for you, because I think that it will really put you on the map, and I've been fascinated to learn so much about the tremendous attractions that there are in Saudi Arabia. Two more things that are probably more related to the meetings are its international federations rotate among regions, and you must use this fact. International federations will go to the Middle East. So you must see that when there is a time for international associations to come to the Middle East or to an Arabian nation, that they choose the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. That is going to be to your great advantage. And the fourth thing is that we also encourage Saudis to get onto the boards of their international federations. There are international federations for many, many professions and many industries, and Saudis should, as much as possible, take the opportunity to get onto the board of directors and work their way up, because that is a very good way of finding out more about the way the association works and the inside running of that organisation. Associations, another slide. You can see my encouragement for this theme. Huge potential for the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. They provide relevant and specific services to members. They're cheaper to run than government bodies. It's much cheaper around the world. Government organisations are always far more expensive to run than practical associations. And they grow to employ many people, including young people. And I will also mention something that comes up in a slide a little bit later. Many associations around the world are run primarily by women, because women are better organised than men, very hard-working, better organised. So they have huge potential in your country to provide employment for women and employment for young people. The overall title of my talk today is Association Financial Sustainability International Approach, and I'm bringing that all together in this slide, not the last slide, a few more to go. But associations, number one, associations never distribute money to members. They never distribute profits to members. Therefore, they get wealthier. I've mentioned that earlier, and I do want to reinforce that your associations will become well off over time. They employ quality staff and they empower the staff to achieve the financial results. There is no point in having a board of directors that volunteer and say, we will run the association in our part-time. Boards need to set the agenda, set the plans, and then hire people to run the organisation. If I come back to this Associations Day in 5 years, I hope to see it filled by paid chief executives of Saudi associations. They will be accountable and answerable to their boards of directors, that they will be making the decisions that are needed to advance their associations, which will have a wonderful spin-off to your nation and to the meeting sector. Number 4, remember, and it's in red, remember conferences are the number one source of profit. That's why Saudi associations will be delighted by the quality of the services and venues in your nation, and they will want to bring lots of delegates here, including number 5, which is World Congresses. If you get it right, a World Congress can be very financially attractive to your association. If you get it wrong, it can be the opposite, but we assume with the quality of the advice that has been at this conference, you will learn about getting it right. And you should aim, this is my controversial point for this session, is you should aim for zero government funds. You should not be going to, in the early stages, I understand, it is good if your government helps you get established, but you should not expect the government to do it, because you will in time make millions of dollars from conferences, from membership, from providing services to your members, and that will be wonderful for your associations. Just a couple more slides to go. Tips for successful associations. Here you are, everything you need to know about associations in 9 bullet points. Number 1, grow the association like it is an ambitious startup. Be optimistic, be dynamic, be entrepreneurial about what you can do. And to do that, the boards of directors have to leave it to the team, the capable employees of the organisation, to come up with the ideas. Number 2, charge what you are worth in membership registration and sponsorship packages. Sometimes associations charge too much in sponsorship and not enough in membership and not enough in registrations. You have to charge what you are worth, and you have to make people realise that their association is giving them value for money. Number 3, I've said it before, do not rely on government funds. Number 4, use marketing and sales to grow membership. People will not join you because it's the right thing to do. They will join you because they want to get a service from the organisation. You need to use marketing and sales. Number 5, when you have the members, you need to use services, use the services offered and have engagement with the members to retain them. You give them wonderful services and you ring them up and say, how are things going? Can we help you? Do not just ring your associations when it is time for them to book in for the conference or send their membership renewal. Number 6, have a good hands-off, eyes-on board of 9 that employs the CEO. You do not want the board of directors to think that they are running the organisation. They have to employ a chief executive who will make the decisions to run that organisation. I say hands-off, which means do not get too involved in it, but keep your eyes on the association. Number 7, have a good governance and constitutions. That's a topic for another session, another time. Invest by employing lots of people. Why not employ people in an association? You are not there for shareholders' benefits. It is not taxpayer funds, it's not government money. So therefore, it's a great area for more employment of people. And the last thing is do an annual strategic plan. I have some quotes from speakers at this conference earlier. Juan Garcia from ICA said, develop national and regional targets. That is one of the things that we heard from Juan from his experience through the ICCA. And my emphasis on that is that do not forget the national targets. You've really got to have a strong national sector. Number 2, Engineer Abdullah said we need enablers. in various sectors to develop meetings. And I see that as weighing those enablers should be the associations. Number 3, Tom Holton from IMEX said local Saudi events are big. Tom shared with us the story of the National Association of Diabetes, which runs a conference for 3,000 people. And my 4th quote that I have gained from this conference, it's really good being on day 3 because you get to hear the good ideas from days 1 and days 2. And Dr. Zohair said, women are good organisers. So I think there's a lot of synergy in what the previous speakers have said at this conference. That's me yesterday. Thank you very much. I've had a wonderful time. That's one of my great memories of my wonderful few days here. And my last thing is to thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you today. I'm very enthusiastic about the association sector in Saudi Arabia. I believe it has a great future, and our offer is that if you see at the bottom of the slide there, we will have a free registration fee for up to 10 Saudis if anyone comes to the Associations Forum National Conference in Australia. When we run an associations conference, we have 600 attendees, and if any Saudi Arabians are lucky enough to come to Australia, we would be honoured to return the hospitality and we will waive any registration fees. Thank you very much for your time this morning. Thank you.
نشكر مستر جون على هذا الطرح الجميل، وقد ناقش أكثر من فقرة أو نقطة مهمة، منها الاهتمام بمقرات الجمعيات بحيث أنه يستفاد منها لزيادة مدخولها، وأيضا الاهتمام بالربحية في الجمعيات وانضمام الجمعيات للاتحادات الدولية، وأيضا ركز على الاستدامة المالية، فله كل الشكر. أما الآن مع المتحدث الثاني مستر أجاي بوجاني، وهو حاصل على درجة الماجستير في التسويق من جامعة وينغوك، العضو المنتدب والمدير التنفيذي للMCI الشرق الأوسط، وتشمل المسؤوليات التي يقوم بها جميع جوانب التخطيط المالي والتنفيذ والقيادة والتخطيط الاستراتيجي والتوسع الإقليمي. وسوف يتحدث مستر أجاي عن التنافس في تقديم العطاءات والنجاح في استقطاب فعاليات الأعمال، فليتفضل مشكورا.
Right. Good morning. Thank you. Thank you for the lovely introduction, and thanks, John, for kind of laying into this section, which is all about meetings and conferences. So this topic is talking about, we heard from John, right, how conferences are important for associations. Associations depend, they would like to generate quite a bit of profit that helps them to run their annual operations or run their other activities, which is servicing their members. So this kind of talks primarily all about how do you go about running these conferences, how do you go about bidding and attracting these international conferences. Before I get started, of course, I would also like to thank the Saudi Convention and Exhibitions Bureau and the organizers of this event. I think the last 3 days also has shown, which we talk about, which we've been talking about actually in the last 2 days, and I'll touch a bit in my presentation, is about the industry coming together. And I think this is a great example where you have your partners, whether they are the venues, the technology partners, the organizers, all coming together to put a show like this. And I think that really shows that the industry is moving forward and it's kind of gearing up for the future. So all right, so let's get started. So while we talk about bidding, right, it's all about putting the destination forward. And destination marketing, which is all about showcasing how the destination can attract meetings and conferences, is not just about attracting people for business or leisure tourism. It's not about creating a name for the destination or a fame for it. It's also about the economic development, and that's something very crucial, especially when you choose scientific, technical subjects, healthcare conferences, engineering conferences. These not only just bring in people to the city or the destination, but they also bring in a lot of economic development. They create synergies, they create opportunities for the industry and that particular sector to grow. And I think that's a mindset to look at when you're attracting some of these conferences. So meetings and events, we already looked from the other side, what it means for an association, right? It means, of course, getting them the right profit, getting them the right financials that helps them to drive the association. But what it means for a city, why is it so important? Why are a lot of cities around the world talking about attracting meetings and talking about this particular sector as a very key and integral part of the future development? This is a size today. In fact, I think the last statistics was it's already gone over $1 trillion, how big this industry means and how big the impact of this industry means to a city or a destination. And I think if you just take a small portion, predominantly a lot of this money sits in the West, right? Big meetings in the United States, big meetings in the Europe. So if you focus or zoom down into the Middle East, you take probably, I would say, 1/10 of the share. That's still a significant value when it comes to the size of the meetings. And that's kind of what we're talking about today. And how do you get a portion of this? How do you attract more and more and take that portion from being a 1/10 to start doubling and tripling as we go forward? A general sense, when you run a meeting or a conference, a lot of times people do come back. It's also because a lot of times, we don't get time. When we travel for business, we get to the airport, land, get to the hotel, attend the conference, get back to the airport, and we are out. So a lot of times we don't get an opportunity to see a city or a destination, and a lot of times people do want to come back with the families, whether it's for religious reasons, cultural tourism, or it's for leisure. A lot of times people create synergies and dialogues for business, which means they come back for business opportunities. And that's kind of the impact of these meetings and conferences. A lot of times people will come back, and generally the notion is 40% people do come back. In fact, yesterday I think when we were at the festival, I heard a lot of people who have traveled to Saudi for the first time talking about, yeah, I think I'm going to come back in a few months because we see real potential in the market for doing business. So that already showcases that people will keep coming back when you create opportunities like this. So let's go forward. Let's talk a little bit more about bidding. How does this whole process actually work? So it starts from what industry, what sector are we talking about, right? What's important to the nation, or what's part of the Vision 2030? Saudi has this grand vision of Vision 2030, which talks about key industries, key sectors that the country would like to develop. And then, of course, how does the development happens? While the government takes certain initiatives, there are a lot of initiatives that an association can take. And some of these conferences are steps as part of those initiatives, because when you create these opportunities for conferences to come in, they bring in the international bodies, they bring in international associations, they bring in the scientific knowledge that then takes forward in creating that. Once you've identified as an association or as a government institution saying, okay, that's the industry and the sector that's priority for us, we're going to talk about meetings from this sector. You go about then talking about, okay, who's typically going to be the local host? And I think that's also understanding the process of bidding. An international association typically would like to have a local host, which means a local association, a government institution, or a local body that represents the industry and the sector. It's pretty important, and generally this is one of the missing points that a lot of cities struggle with. They would like to attract a lot of meetings, but they're not able to connect the meeting to the local host. And I think if you can do that right, it kind of works very well. Third comes in, who's going to lead the initiative, bringing the industry together, putting the whole bid together, and then defining a strategy. What are we going to talk about? Why should, let's say, it should come to Riyadh versus any other destination in the world? What's different other than what could be put as legacy? What could be put as an offering on the table? Does that mean creating more business opportunities for the people attending the conference? So those are few check boxes that you need to select, and each destination would pick their strategy and their strength. And I think once you define that process, then it moves forward onto the next step. These are some of the sectors that I picked up when I was looking at some of the Vision 2030 documents. So these are typically the sectors that the city and the country would like to go after. And I think John mentioned, there are 100,000 associations in Australia. You multiply that 5 times, that's in the United States. You multiply that by 10 times, that's European associations. So that's the scale of some of the meetings that are visible. I mean, we spoke about the databases that sit in ICA. If you look at the databases, there are more than 15,000 meetings that rotate around the world. So that's the potential of going after, and it's now kind of shortlisting. Sometimes while it looks big, it also gets confusing, right? You're talking about so many meetings. How do I cherry pick what I would like to go after? And I think that's really the science of it. You pick and select the meetings that suit the destination the most. If you get that strategy right, it's much easier to put a winning bid document forward and then kind of move forward. So, of course, we looked at a lot of factors. We've spoken about it in the last 2 days, right? when you're talking to meetings, I think it's also important to look at the comparability. A meeting of 5,000 people, a meeting of 10,000 people. Is the destination ready? Does it have the infrastructure? I think yesterday morning we saw some great venues, the exhibition centers which have been in the past, the new exhibition and convention venues that are coming up, some of the new hotels that we spoke about. I think they're great venues the country is building at the moment and has further in the development. It's kind of looking at those venues and these meetings and making them match. Is the infrastructure right? And then also looking at other factors, right? Safety and security. Do we have the knowledge hub? Do we have a research institution that can back this conference up? Can we create a great scientific program that will attract the people? And of course, I mean, yesterday we saw, in the last 2 days, we've seen great cultural experiences. And I think that's something to be proud about. That's something to be showcased at these meetings, that this is a cultural destination and a religious destination. We can show some of these elements when we attract international travelers to this region. And I think it's bringing that whole package together. You know, every destination is unique, so you got to pick what works for you. Of course, we've looked at a lot of airlines flying in, so connectivity I don't think is a big problem. Yesterday I spoke to so many people who've flown in direct from various parts of the world, so I don't think that's an issue as well, flying into Riyadh as such. And of course, like I said, this whole conference speaks about the industry coming together. So I don't think that also is a problem. I mean, I've been traveling here for, I think for the last 15 years, I've done more than 50, 60 trips. Every time I come, it's something better, it's something more forward-looking, which means the destination keeps taking steps and leaps forward, which is a great sign of development. And I think that also shows how the industry is moving forward. You have new players, you have new technologies coming into the market. It's all coming together, and that's kind of what a bidding strategy would typically need. So looking at association, John spoke about quite a bit on associations. I'm going to move a bit fast on this. I mean, this is something to look at when you're speaking to an association. Typically, what is important for them, right? The meeting or the conference has to be successful. It needs to attract the right sponsors. It needs to attract their members to come to the destination, and then finally, the attendees. And when you're putting a bidding document, I think these are elements to showcase that if the meeting is held in Riyadh, for example, can we attract more sponsors, or can we make sure your global sponsors would come to the destination? We have a big regional presence and attendance, which means you would attract probably a lot of people from the region which typically wouldn't come if your meeting was happening in some other destination. That also showcases an association, the confidence a city and a local host can put forward, that it will attract not only people, but it'll attract funds and the support that it needs for the conference to be bigger, better, and more profitable. Because that's what an international association would typically aim for when it's moving forward. This is a typical process. Like I mentioned, you start with the local host, you identify locally which association, which government institution, or a body that would be part or playing a role of a local host. Once you have that, you pick a champion, right? An industry leader who's been in the industry for long, who understands not just scientifically, but also politically where the right bits are connected. They talk to international associations, they've played role and kind of sit on local or international bodies that kind of represent the body of knowledge in the industry. Then you go about making sure you have the right infrastructure, right? You don't want to go for a meeting of 30,000 people and say, oh, you know what, but I don't have a convention center that can take that size. It's important to make sure you're going after meetings that meet the criteria that you have in the destination. Then, of course, looking at partners, industry, whether these are venues, these are congress organizers, these are local ground handlers, all of this come together. I mean, you know, it's a teamwork. The right bid and the most successful bids are always where the teamwork comes at its best. And I think that's something to look at. While the responsibility sits with the government institution, it sits with the Saudi Exhibition and Convention Bureau, but it's not just left to them. Everybody has to play their part to make sure the winning strategy is there. So for example, as a congress organizer, we work with several destinations, right? We play our part. The local host has to do what they have to do from scientifically, and then the bureau does what they have to do. And kind of putting that all together comes a bid that makes it a winning strategy. Some of the last elements that I would like to touch upon, you know, what does winning strategy look like, and how do you work towards creating that winning process, right? One is, it's not just saying, okay, I would like to bid for a meeting X, you put a bid and you might win it. Okay, it can happen, it's not possible, but then you typically work towards it. You go to start attending some of the previous conferences to understand how the event is held, so that when you put a bid, you know what are the requirements and what's really that makes them work. Secondly, you also have to start playing active role in the industry. So whoever your local host is, an individual or an institution, They got to be members, they got to start playing a role, they need to have a voice. The stronger the voice, the stronger the lobbying. The stronger the lobbying, the better chances of winning the bid. And then of course, before you get to that whole process, invite some of these people to come to the destination. Let them experience the culture. Let them experience the infrastructure that you're going to talk about in your bid so that they already know the strategy that you're putting forward is pretty much right and is what people would like to see. And then of course, last is creating that experience. What's new? What can we showcase that has not been done in the past? Every destination has its own appeal. It's kind of showing the right appeal from our destination. Legacy, a lot of associations today talk about legacy. It's becoming more and more important. What do you want to leave behind? A lot of times meetings come in, they create projects, they create institutions, they create agreements that will define the sector for the next few years. They create standards for the sector. So it's about creating that notion of what is the meeting going to leave behind. At the end, the associations are driven by the mission, right? They are here, they exist for a reason. And if you can address that reason in your strategy, it's pretty much a 50% check done to say that, okay, your meeting is not just holding a conference, but it's going to leave an impact on our economy, which means it will benefit us, it will benefit you in the future. And I think that's something to stress upon heavily as we go forward. The last bit is contracting. John spoke about how associations are driven, how kind of the regulations work, the governance structures in place. And I think this is something very important to look at. When you work, if you're successful and you win a bid or a conference that is scheduled to be held, international associations work with timelines because what they do is they move from destination to destination, whether it's every year, every 2 years, or every 3 years. They have a process to follow. And I think it's making sure you follow and work with the process. A lot of times, this is one of the common challenges we see. A local host wins the Congress, but then when it goes into planning mode, of course, the local host has its own way of doing things. Whereas the International Association would like to do it differently because they're used to doing it in a certain manner, irrespective of where the meeting is held. And I think it's making sure it comes together. You've got to make sure that strategy is working not just for you, but even for them. And it's kind of working through contracts and commitments. And it's very important. For international bodies, this becomes a tickling point. The last bit. So a lot of times, once a bid is won, a Congress is held, people are so focused on the conference, they forget some of the other elements. And I think that's something very important if you want to keep bidding for more events, right? One success story is what you would like to share to make sure you have more success stories. And I think this is all about that, making sure once a bid is won, you talk about raising your profile. You promote the destination on how good it was when it went into the bid, how good the Congress was delivered, how great the cultural experiences were. It's creating those stories that people would like to hear what happened. And it's also talking about how the industry moved or how the economic impact was once the meeting was held. I think once you create these stories with a successful bid, it just makes it far more easier when you're putting additional bids as you go forward in different industries and sectors. Pretty much my last two slides talking about what happens. We spoke about economic impact of the Congress. We spoke about the benefits of a Congress to the industry. But there's a lot more that comes from these international conferences. And these are some of the quick bits that I've seen over the years that have happened, especially in our region, which is still growing, which is still emerging and developing a lot of sectors as compared to a lot of other regions around the world. It still helps in bringing a lot of knowledge. We've seen a lot of quality standards being set up for different sectors. We've seen trade and more business opportunities created at these meetings, which have more long-lasting impact onto the destination as well as the industry. We've talked about more community benefits. We've seen a lot of associations leave legacy projects behind, which means creating either charitable institutions, creating business opportunities that the destination follows through. So I think it's making sure you capture that right. So it's not just bid, win a conference, and then move on. I think it's also capturing the essence of why this conference and what it has left behind. And the last bit, and I think this is the most tricky bit. Some of these bids can take years, right from the process of when you decided to bid, you put the bid forward, you won the conference, and you've held the conference. This could be 1 year, it could be 6, 7, 8 years. We've sometimes worked on bids, like right now we're working on a bid for 2027. By the time the meeting is held, we don't know where we are, right? So it's about making sure you create that process internally as well. These could be a long process. So you're, as an organization, you're behind it. You know, as an individual, of course, it's 10 years. We don't know what happens, but you're working towards it. You're creating a process that tomorrow somebody else can run the same process if the bid is won and the Congress can be held. Choose the subjects and topics which are more closer to the destination. So, like I said, there are 15,000 meetings, out of which maybe 2,000 or 3,000 are suitable to come to this destination. How do you pick the top 10? How do you pick the top 50? Is looking at what industries work better, where your local hosts are the most strongest, where the government, you know, endorsement and involvement is the most strongest. I think choosing those helps you to kind of narrow it down and go after projects or conferences that might be easier to win and all of that. And then, of course, like I said, when you're putting a bid, make sure you bring everybody together. It's a teamwork. You need you need public sector, you need private sector, you need the industry, you need the infrastructure. You need to bring all that together to highlight what you have and why you're ready for a conference of whatever size it could be, and what the impact would it be, both economically and scientifically on the destination. That's pretty much it from me on the biddings. Thank you very much. And I'll pass it on to you. There you go.
نشكر مستر أجاي الذي تحدث في أكثر من نقطة مهمة وركز على أن المؤتمرات أصبحت صناعة ينفق فيها مبالغ مالية كبيرة، وأيضا ركز على أنه لابد يكون في بنية أساسية في الدول الراغبة في إقامة الاجتماعات، وأيضا لابد يكون في رعاة وشركاء محليين في صناعة هذه الاجتماعات. الآن ننتقل إلى المتحدث الثالث مستر روبن ميلر، وهو حاصل على درجة الماجستير في التسويق الدولي، وعمل كمحاضر في التسويق في جامعة غلاسكو، وانتقل إلى أبو ظبي في عام 2012 للانضمام إلى مركز أبو ظبي الوطني للمعارض إدونيك مديراً للمبيعات. وسوف يتحدث مستر روبن عن توجهات الجمعيات الدولية وأثرها في صناعة الاجتماعات، فليتفضل مشكوراً.
Assalamu alaikum. Good morning. My name is Robin Miller, and I'm the Director of Sales for Congresses at ADNEC, the Abu Dhabi National Exhibition Centre in the UAE. It's a terrific privilege to be invited to join you here. Ever since I moved to the Middle East 5 years ago, I very much wanted to come and visit Saudi, and this is my first opportunity. And to see the scale of enthusiasm and partnership that I'm witnessing is really terrific. And in my experience in the industry for 20 plus years, destinations start stirring to become a hot topic, and I don't think there's any question that Saudi is at the start of a very exciting journey where there's huge opportunity for growth in the meeting sector. I often get asked how I feel about the growing competition in the region, and I always give the same answer, that I thoroughly welcome it. My own personal passion for the industry goes beyond the commercial aspect. I really believe that collectively what we do can have very high impact on societal change and help a broader global understanding of differences. And it's for that reason that as the infrastructure in the region develops and we collectively invite people to the Middle East, I think conversation by conversation we're managing to overcome some misconceptions about the region, and every visitor to the region leaves to tell other people that there's great opportunity here. I've been asked to present on what the trends in the global associations market are. You're going to hear me actually covering a number of points that John and Ajay have already covered, but it'll reinforce them. And I'm seeing that through the context of how that affects the meetings industry and where opportunity lies for the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia to support the global associations to help deal with some of the pressures that they have in their world. So if I may, I'm going to start by putting a little bit of context into the scale of the opportunity here. My figures are only a few billion out from your own, AJ, but I think that the story here is very clear. Globally, the tourism sector broadly is the biggest sector in the world, and within that, business tourism is perhaps often overshadowed by its big brother in the leisure sector. However, it's well established that somebody attending a business event will spend more, and this accounts for direct economic impact to the huge 5 trillion real opportunity. But as has already been covered, this is just the tip of the iceberg. The connections that are made at events, the exchange of knowledge, the opportunity for inward investment on the back of that, and legacy issues and so on. This is where the real benefit of associations lies. A bit of historical context here on the overall meetings market. One can see that over the last 40 or 50 years there's been steady growth, particularly in the last 20 years, both in terms of the number of meetings and the number of participants attending those meetings. Now, going back a number of years, I think the industry was fearful that advances in technology would perhaps hold back this growth. However, what's clear is that people need face-to-face engagement, and the future is rosy that people will continue to attend business events for that up-close, hands-on experience. However, that's not to say that there are not pressures that the associations are feeling, which we can play a part in addressing. Excuse me. To drill down a little deeper with the ICA statistics here, this is the number of meetings held by region. And clearly Europe dominates here, where they have got many thousands of associations. But the interesting line on that graph is the red one, where one can clearly see that the Middle East and Asia has been the fastest growing region in the world. There's a number of reasons for that. I think the building blocks are in place, unrivaled infrastructure, the geographical location whereby a huge percentage of global population can get to this region quickly and easily with wonderful airlines, great hotel bed stock, and wonderful venues. These pieces are in place now, and I also believe when you historically look at the rotational patterns of big associations, many of them haven't been to the Middle East for a variety of reasons, but they're coming. That message is loud and clear in the conversations that I have. It's time for them to come to develop their mission in the region and to look for new members in the region to enhance their work in the region. So taking this one step further down, this is a particularly impressive statistic. Again, thank you to ICA for this. In the space of just 2 years, the number of meetings hosted in the Middle East has more than doubled. Now that clearly illustrates that there's room for many, many partners in this region to be advancing their own economic objectives through the meetings industry as a vehicle. And if you excuse me for mentioning specifically Abu Dhabi's journey, it's not just self-promotion here, but the point that I want to make here is that with a strategic plan, as AJ was mentioning, being very focused on an alignment between the economic objectives of a destination, where the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in its 2030 economic vision sees its key strengths, by linking that to hosting local, regional and international events in those sectors, there's a clear thread whereby one's opportunity to win business is enhanced. ICA ranks cities globally every year in the number of meetings held, and it's with great pride as one of Team Abu Dhabi, which includes the PCO community, it includes the Convention Bureau, of course, it includes the venues, the airline, etc. We've made a terrific growth from 234th to 73rd, and there's absolutely nothing stopping other Middle Eastern destinations exceeding that in the coming years. I think some of this has possibly been covered. Before I get into the trends, the way that I encourage my colleagues to look at the market is not to have your own aspirations in mind up front. If you speak to international associations and the dialogue is based around a deep understanding and empathy on why they go to work and what their mission is, the difference in how one can move that opportunity forward is immense. So global associations are looking for partners who understand why they go to work, and that is, amongst other things, lobbying government for legislative change to advance their mission, creating industry liaisons, educating and training people attending their events, and investing in research and development projects throughout their year. An understanding of this will help inform where success lies dealing with global associations. Now, when considering the trends of global associations before coming here, I reached out to a number of associations that I've worked closely with in recent months and asked them precisely that question. And on this slide, I'm not going to run through all of them, but the reason I've put a number of them up there is just to show that very quickly I established a whole range of responses, ranging from advocacy issues to security issues to risk management issues and such like. And what I can take from that is the not-for-profit association world is facing the same speed of rapid change that the corporate world is facing too. There's all sorts of new pressures that they're having to contend with. And what they need to do in order to face a bright future and to continue growth into the future is work in partnerships with destinations, with PCOs, with venues, etc., who can help them address some of these issues. So what I'm going to do is just focus on a few of these. I'm going to look at revenue, a bit of transparency, attendance and membership, which is linked back to revenue, linking the Congress destination to the association mission, and meeting formats and audience engagement. Now, I was interested when I listened, when I listened to John expressing how many associations are sitting on many millions of dollars. I think this is probably a reflection of the fact that me being a guy selling a venue ultimately to host these events, I would be led to believe that nobody's got any money. But I think whilst some definitely have big support, we hosted an event called ICANN. That's the organization who govern the internet. We hosted them in October last year. Now, for every person that takes a .com or a .org, they pay a fee to this organization. Now, they are very wealthy, but many of the organizations that I've spoken to have money and have a sustainable future because of they're quite recession-proof. However, they're feeling the stress on their revenue streams. It's a constant for them to understand how they can unlock new revenue-generating potential. The left-hand box there identifies just a few examples of issues that they're facing with regards to pressure on their revenue. Typically, in years gone by, if I can talk about the healthcare sector that dominates in the large international congress sector, pharmaceutical companies would take large stands and send many staff to be there for the duration of the event. However, what many associations are finding is that yes, they'll still have a presence there, but it's much smaller. The pharmaceutical code, without going into too much detail about that, over the last few years, it's a code that governs the behavior of the pharmaceutical companies and what they can and cannot do around conferences. And a few years ago, they could send doctors to conferences, and they can no longer do that, which has a direct impact on the number of attendees at events and in turn the number of registration fees. In the right-hand box, I just want to highlight a couple of creative ideas that I've heard about as to how associations are seeking new revenue streams. A new funding method, to go back to the example of the exhibition. The World Obesity Federation, one of their key pharmaceutical sponsors is Novo Nordisk. Historically, Novo Nordisk would take a big stand where their employees would stand and network and demonstrate their product and such like. And Novo Nordisk have decided not to take a stand with the World Obesity Federation at all. And that's a significant shift in how a pharma company would approach an organisation that they've been heavily invested in and need to work with. And what they've done, in collaboration with the World Obesity Federation, have agreed to invest a huge amount of money in their advocacy programme, where their name is associated with legislative change for the enhancement of study into diabetes, which is such an endemic problem. So that's a real positioning for Novo Nordisk, and the association of the federation still maintains its revenue. What they also are doing is sending 100 delegates, 100 employees of their own, to be immersed in that event, to be educated at it and to network at it. So it's a different approach, and everybody feels that this is a model that's working for them, potentially a model for the future. The second one that I mentioned is sponsored webinars. Through the use of technology now, not everybody has the time that they can spare to come and visit the congresses, and the fear was that video conferencing could overtake face-to-face engagement. However, it turns out to be quite the contrary. Using webinars where people all over the world can engage with the event from their desks creates potential new attendees at the event and shares that education. And these can be sponsored. I was at last month at an event in Nashville, PCMA, an event for meeting planners in America. And they had a fantastic outreach through their webinars, which again were sponsored. So again, the funds are coming into the organisation and they're reaching a new audience. Final point in this one is regional roadshows. For some of the more mature markets, American Society of Chemical Engineers or European Association for Study of Liver, for example, they have their main event, but in order to establish new markets, what they're taking from the main conference is the absolute highlights, the keynote speakers and the most popular sessions, and taking them on a roadshow, and that creates an opportunity for us here in the Middle East to start making connections with these international organizations as we develop our aspirations to host their big conferences one day in the future. Now, membership and attendance, I think, again, some of this has maybe been covered. Membership and attendance is such a key revenue generator for the associations, and it's so critical, of course, to their future sustainability as organizations to have a membership. So what did historically people, what was their engagement? Principally, amongst them, it was a data source. Being a member of an association meant you had access to a database of like-minded individuals, research papers, etc. And now what we find, of course, is that this is diminished because any data you want is in your pocket and on the internet. So what we also used to have was week-long conferences. Conferences, and I'm going back a while here, might have been deemed to be a bit of a break from the day job. Those days have gone now. And many healthcare professionals might be attending a lot of events in a year. So the story here has all changed. And again, this is a pressure and a trend that the associations have to contend with. As I said, information is available immediately for their delegates. A bit more time-starved now. People will attend shorter events, but they want them to be much more focused on the agenda so they can come in and out and receive what they want from that, make the connections they want, and have the education that they're looking for. So the result in this is a pressure on membership. And it's a really key point here that I think is a terrific opportunity for Saudi Arabia. One of the principal reasons I think that we saw in that graph there of the growth in the Middle East is this is an area that people have not been to. And it's not just by coming here, they're meeting new members, but over and above that, because of the geographical location, the Middle East can draw in audiences from India or East Africa or Africa as a whole. And this is highly attractive to the organizations, and I think a massive opportunity given that the kingdom has such a huge proportion of the population of the GCC. The final point that I make in that slide there, is in relation again to the World Obesity Federation. If I can just elaborate on that a little. One of the things I would encourage everybody in the room to do in their aspirations to work with global associations is to take it in steps. Visibility at the international association level by having Saudi associations being present and active on the committees, that may take a bit of time, and it's an important function of winning the major events, which are the high economic, high legacy events that everyone is interested in. But there are steps in between there, and that is to create local meetings. And when you're doing local meetings, invite in some regional speakers. Next step, create regional meetings and invite in the international organization to support and bring in their key speakers and committee members. Trust is formed, an understanding of the infrastructure, the research, the education that's happening here happens. And from that point on, you move on to some of the bidding process that AJ has already covered. This one relates perhaps more to what happens on the floor at events. The audience engagement is a key factor for global associations at the moment. This is going to take a bit of time to change, I think, but the days of people coming to conferences and being comfortable sitting at the back of a theatre-style meeting room being lectured to are beginning to drift away. New audiences are looking for full technology integration into their events so they can connect with the outside world. They want to work collaboratively with hands-on experiential learning where they can. It's not applicable in every conference, but where they can, this greatly enhances the learning and in turn the repeat opportunity for people to come back to events. Access, delegates want to come to events and get close up to the thought leaders and ask them questions face to face. They don't want this remote engagement. They want a voice in setting the agenda overall. Now, there are many different ways that the industry is responding to this in terms of different meeting formats. And from a venue perspective, which is my one, a close examination of how people are actually moving around and engaging with one another. And one example of this is that if you look at the pre-function areas at large congresses now, that's where the action is happening. People are huddling in small spaces and exchanging information, and the learning from these environments is greatly enhanced. So again, this is something that global associations have to be mindful of, and I think as you develop your infrastructure here in Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, I would be very mindful of the fact that coming through, in my guess, over the next 10 to 15 years will be a significant change in the way people actually want to receive their learning when they attend conferences. Final point for me is transparency and focus in destination selection, and I think I can probably move through this reasonably quickly because it's been touched on by both John and AJ here. I can't overstress it, though, that people are not selecting where they're going to come and do their business for touristic reasons. Those days are gone. Yes, it's nice if there's great things to enhance that experience and to have repeat visits. However, most great cities around the world have museums and great restaurants and great hotels and so on and so forth. That's not where the conversation is at. In order to unlock the potential here, the key is to focus on the industry sectors that the 2030 vision highlight and to match that with the industry opportunity associated with them. And with that, I believe that you all have an absolutely superb opportunity to develop this sector, and I wish you all the very best of luck in the future. Thank you.
نشكر مستر روبين. فقد تم طرح أكثر من نقطة مهمة عن حجم الفرص في صناعة الاجتماعات في المنطقة وبالأخص في المملكة العربية السعودية، وأيضا تعديل بعض القوانين من أجل جذب الاجتماعات للمنطقة. الآن نفتح المجال للحضور سواء بالمداخلات أو بطرح الأسئلة، لكن آمل الحرص على التعريف بالاسم والجهة، وأيضا السؤال موجه لمين، ويكون السؤال أو المداخلة لا تتعدى دقيقة فقط. تفضلوا.
Hello, good morning. Philip McKean from Montgomery in London. Question probably for John. We talked about the sizes of the association industry in Saudi Arabia versus Australia. And we looked at 943 in Saudi Arabia is the current status, and looking to target 1,000 with a population of 32 million people. In Australia, you've got a population of 24 million and you've got over 100,000 associations. Is there a strategy to stimulate the growth of the association sector in Saudi Arabia or anywhere else for that matter?
Thanks for the question, Philip. I believe every nation should be asking themselves what their strategy is. And obviously, Australia, we inherited a lot of associations from our British forebears, and we've continued them, and they're uniquely Australian. But every association, every nation should say, do the laws make it easy and transparent for the establishment of an association? And is there good regulation of the associations so that they can be transparently seen as being honest and above board? So there is some governmental and legislative infrastructure needed. If that's in place, then I think that they will flourish.
Thank you.
السلام عليكم. أنا اسمي محمد الغامدي ورئيس جمعية المنتجين السعوديين، جمعية إعلامية. حتكلم في موضوع عام قبل مداخلة الندوة. حتكلم على من أقام هذه الندوة. لاحظتهم أنهم جابوا ناس في متحدثين وناس يديروا الجلسات، وهم أساساً كانوا يعيقوا أي مؤتمر يقوم في السعودية. هل جبتوهم مكافأة لهم أنهم يجوا على إعاقتهم أو لا؟ هذا اللي أبي أعرفه. الشيء الثاني، كنت أتمنى موظفين الوزارات اللي هم في الصف الأول اللي أساساً عندهم بعض الموافقات يكونوا موجودين هنا، أو بعض العوائق لموضوع المؤتمرات والأشياء هذه المفروض يكونوا موجودين في هيك ندوة على أساس يغيروا أفكارهم في المستقبل. النقطة الثالثة يعني اللي هي في الأستاذ روبن قال على أساس تغيير القوانين. أعتقد القوانين مغيرة وجاهزة، وبوجود يعني بوجود اللجنة الوطنية للمعارض والمؤتمرات هذه. لكن أتمنى أنه اللجنة الوطنية كمان تغير المنتاليتي تبعها، لأنها قاعدة تعيق الجمعيات الموجودة على أرض الواقع في تقديم أي عمل، وقاعدة فجأة نلقاها تعطي تراخيص لمؤسسات غير معروفة ومؤسسات ما تستطيع تقوم إيفنت في بقالة. فهذه نقطة ثانية نتمنى أنه يعني تغيير التفكير حتى نقدر نوصل للموضوع اللي تكلمنا فيه خلال ال3 أيام. الموضوع كان جيد جدا، لكن على أرض الواقع تنفيذه يعني في عوائق كثيرة عندنا. شكرا.
الاسم محمد مكي، رئيس الجمعية الجغرافية السعودية، جامعة الملك سعود. سؤالي موجه للدكتور جونز. أشار الدكتور جونز يعني من النشاطات التي يمكن أن تدعم نشاطات الجمعيات اهتمامها بالإيفنتس أو نشاطات علمية وإيجاد موارد على المدى الطويل. أنا أعتقد جمعيات في المملكة العربية السعودية خاصة الجمعيات الإنسانية تواجه يعني عدة مشاكل في هذا الاتجاه. المشكلة الأولى مشكلة قانونية. في السابق كان يعني احنا في الخاصة بالجامعات السعودية لا يسمح للجمعية أن تمارس نشاط غير نشاط العلمي أو البحث العلمي، فيعني يضع عقبة أمام ممارسة أي نشاط في يعني يوفر دخل للجمعيات. المشكلة الأخرى الآن حتى الوقت الحاضر يلزم لعقد مؤتمر أو اجتماع لأي جمعية أن ترفع بأسماء المشاركين، حتى قبل أن يعلن المؤتمر ترفع أسماء المشاركين أو الراغبين المشاركة. فكيف يتم هذا؟ يعني أنت لسه ما أعلنت المشروع وترغب يعني الجهات المعنية في رفع أسمائهم. فأنا أؤكد على كلمة الأخيرة أنه لا يلزم تغيير القوانين حتى تسهل يعني عمل عقد هذه الاجتماعات. النقطة الثالثة، المشكلة الثالثة، يمكن نحن في المملكة العربية السعودية تعودت يعني الأكاديميين، خاصة الأكاديميين، تعودوا أنه في المشاركات المؤتمرات خاصة الوطنية في داخل الوطن أن توفر لهم المسكن والنقل والإعاشة، مع أنه نفس الأشخاص لو شاركوا في مؤتمرات دولية بيدفعوا رسوم المؤتمرات ويدفعوا رسوم النقل. فمسألة فكر أيضا تحتاج إلى جهود في تغيير الفكر، كيف ندعم هذه اللقاءات العلمية ونساهم فيها حتى لو كان برسوم وتكاليف معينة. أعتقد يعني إشكاليات من الآن في الشهر القادم إن شاء الله عندنا لقاء مؤتمر وفي مدعوات من أستراليا، لكن نواجه مشكلة يعني الحصول إلى الآن، يعني لم نستطع الحصول على تأشيرات لدخول من خارج المملكة. في عقبات يمكن الجهات المنظمة هنا في الجمعيات العلمية تولي هذه الإشكاليات التي تواجه الجمعيات يعني أهمية كبيرة. شكرا.
هل يوجد تعليق من مستر جون؟
Sir, thank you very much for your question. I have the advantage of coming from a regulatory environment and a culture where associations are part of the furniture. They are well accepted, but I will go back to the point that if you need to have regulations that empower the association to act fairly independently. Companies can run activities without having to check. They can have business activities, they can sell things. They do not always have to go back to the government to check whether they can sell new products or new services. And I think the principles are there the same. The key thing for authorities in any country is to see that the association is genuine and it is there for the right purposes. Once the government accepts that the association is a good group of people who want to help people, the government, I believe, should not over-regulate. But that is an issue for your own internal discussions. But I think with the new spirit of modernisation and the goals for 2030, I think this is a great opportunity. People in your country are listening for ways to change it. And what I would also suggest is that it's very important for the associations to get together and agree that we are, say, 10 of the 500 associations and getting together in a very friendly way and say these are some suggestions that the associations community has to offer. Because I think it's going to be hard if just one association suggests changes to the bureaucracy, whereas if a group of you get together and say we've given this some thought and we respectfully want to minimise regulations, I think that would be more effective. But I do agree with your question, sir. There should be, you should have a lot of independence to do good services for your members and achieve results. Thank you.
السؤال أوجه للمستر روبن. دكتور إبراهيم الزبن، نائب رئيس جمعية حاضرة الأعمال السعودية. من خلال تجربتكم في أبو ظبي هي قريبة من تجربة السعودية، هناك إشكالية لدى الجمعيات بشكل عام، سواء الجمعيات الأهلية أو الجمعيات العلمية في المملكة، فيما يخص استقطاب دعم القطاع الخاص، من خلال تجربتكم في أبو ظبي ما هي أفضل الوسائل اللي تجعل القطاع الخاص يتشارك في دعم المعارض وأيضا المنتديات أو الملتقيات مع الجمعيات، سواء الجمعيات الأهلية أو الجمعيات العلمية الأكاديمية؟ شكرا.
Thank you very much for the question, which is a very interesting point that you raise. I'm speaking about this from the venue perspective. So we're one step removed from this. It's important to us that private investment does support all the events that we put on. That gives them obviously the financial support, but it just adds that dimension that the associations need and want. What I would say is how to enhance that is we benefit from being a government department. The venue is a government department. So through our relationships with, for example, the Chamber of Commerce, we work hard to identify the activity in various industrial sectors and engage with them directly to let them know about what we're bidding on. What will always enhance a bid is if an international organisation can see some in-principle commitment from not just from governmental but from private organisations saying we will be active and present, and they've got their logo on the bid. It's not a 100% obligation, but it shows that that work has already been done locally. Now I'm sitting next to someone that we work closely with, and the PCO community, the professional conference organiser community, are often much more deeply engaged in that world. MCI and AJ's organisation will have a huge database, not just in this region, but globally, of companies that are active in all kinds, well, in all industrial sectors where there's activity with conferences. So and this is a theme coming out here, it's about partnership for us. If we're sitting with an organisation and they want to unlock some local private investment with that, we would be sitting together with the Chamber, with the Convention Bureau and with the client to work out how we can do it by identifying companies to assist them.
I think one thing I'll add on to that question and to what Robin said, raising funds and bringing in sponsorship today is pretty much the #1 problem for associations to run conferences. And a fundamental challenge to this whole thing comes is the strategy for the conference is put together. A lot of times the content is put together and then an association goes to market and says, here's my conference, here's the program, probably here's half of the speakers, I would like you to sponsor the event. And that's really where the problem begins. In an ideal scenario, it should be the reverse way. It's always good to put the strategy with the sector involved. So a lot of times when we know the subjects are unique or it's a very niche topic, which means there are not more than 10 or 20 players in the private sector who can fund it, it's better to have them involved at the strategy level, which means when should the conference be held, what kind of, which city works better for you, what would you like to see as part of the content. And generally when you do that, and like Robin said, in the partnership model, they feel as much involved in the conference as an association, which means it's not just about saying, okay, I will sponsor and okay, it's your event. It's our event and we work together. And I think that's where a lot of associations can do better.
الأخوات القطاع النسائي في أحد مداخلة مشاركة؟ تفضل.
أنا؟ السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. أنا أحمد الغامدي، عضو مؤسس للعديد من الجمعيات العلمية. اللي أشوف أن ما في تواجد يعني كما يجب للجمعيات العلمية. وتعلمون أن الجمعيات العلمية لها أثر كبير في تطوير القطاع الخاص. فأحد الدول الأوروبية 40% من الشركات تأسست في الجامعات. هناك مشاكل كثيرة للجمعيات العلمية، وأعتقد أن البرنامج ممكن يعني يتعامل مع الجمعيات لتطوير الملتقيات المتعلقة المتخصصة. يعني أعطينا مثال، نحن أحد الجمعيات عندنا الجمعية السعودية للسلامة المرورية، نفذنا خلال 7 سنوات 4 مؤتمرات عالمية. لا نجد الحقيقة تعاون كبير مع البرنامج، وقد يكون التقصير مننا. الاقتراح يعني أول جون بيكوك يعني ممكن هو يعني يعطينا ما هو أثر هذه الجمعيات لتطوير الاقتصاد. الشيء الثاني أن يكون هناك تعاون أفضل ما بين البرنامج وبين الجمعيات العلمية لإقامة بعض المؤتمرات المتخصصة. شكرا لكم.
نكتفي بهذا القدر من المشاركين، ونشكر القائمين على هذا الملتقى، ونشكر جميع الحضور والمتحدثين في هذه الجلسة، والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
شكرا سعادة الدكتور خالد بن محمد السرحان. شكرا للسادة المتحدثين، وندعو رئيس الجلسة لتكريم المتحدثين. أولا السيد جون بيكوك المدير العام لمنتدى الجمعيات الأسترالية. المتحدث الثاني السيد أجايب جواني العضو المنتدب لMCI الشرق الأوسط. المتحدث الثالث السيد روبن ميلر مدير إدارة المبيعات للمؤتمرات والفعاليات بشركة أبو ظبي الوطنية للمعارض. وندعو سعادة الأستاذ عبد الله بن سلمان الجهني مستشار سمو رئيس الهيئة العامة للسياحة والتراث الوطني لتكريم مدير الجلسة دكتور خالد بن محمد السرحان مدير إدارة علاقات الجمعيات والمؤسسات والمراكز بوزارة العمل والتنمية الاجتماعية. شكرا جزيلا السيدات والسادة. نذكركم بأن الاستراحة والتواصل في منطقة المعرض، كما يسرنا دعوتكم لزيارة العرض التجاري في القاعة الرئيسية بول روم قسم ألف، علما بأن الجلسة القادمة ستكون بعنوان برنامج المبعوث لدعم استقطاب اجتماعات الجمعيات والمنظمات الدولية، وستبدأ بمشيئة الله تعالى عند الساعة 11:00 تماما. وقتا ممتعا نرجوه لكم.